Everything wonderful about my life can be attributed to three things: a memory, a mango, and a mission. And perhaps a few grapes thrown in. Take a look at this photo. What do you see? I see gusto. I see passion and pride and joy, but mostly I see gusto. I am a very proud mother and wife, and I'm an incredibly grateful community member in the Napa Valley, this incredible place. And I'm the founder of Barnraiser, a place dedicated to celebrating people who are changing the way we eat and the way we farm. But gusto did not come easily to me. Finding my passion was not a direct path. Unlike my husband, who knew from age 6 that he was going to be a chef. For me to find that path, I had to do a few things. First of all, I had to take a lot of risks. I had to try many things for which I was unqualified or had no business trying, no experience at. I had to really step up to the bat in those situations quite a lot. The second thing I had to do was I had to listen to these very subtle signals, these sort of intuitive signposts that told me whether to turn left or right, often when other voices were much, much louder. Now, getting to where I am today would not necessarily have been predicted by my food culture in my childhood. So I grew up in a really rich place, suburban Washington, D.C., Falls Church, Virginia, and all the families around us, including my parents, were young working professionals. The men and the women were both working. We had one neighbor who was a CIA agent, and we had one neighbor who was the press secretary for a vice president, and my dad was working on the civil rights movement, and very interesting things. But as far as the food rituals go, we're kind of talking about fish stick Fridays, a whole lot of cream of mushroom soup and everything. And on special occasions, we'd go to the Cracker Barrel. But summers in my childhood took a very interesting twist. Thanks to my mom's Swiss-Italian family, who all, very tight-knit and very large, ended up in Northern California, we got this incredible resort vacation on the ranch in Olema, California. Aunt Margaret and Uncle Ralph's ranch. And this was a completely altered universe for me. But here, the food rituals, you can probably start to imagine, being from Northern California, consisted of things like just picked wild blackberry pie, right? You can smell the dried blackberry bushes when you drive out there. Hand-cranked farmstead ice cream long before farmstead was in the every other sentence vernacular. And the really interesting rituals of the men going out to the duck club, the deer club, and coming back with their bounty. They were such an active part of what was happening at the ranch. I think you can guess which one I am. We also got to hear the stories of generations past, and like my summers had this interesting twist, so did my mom's. And she wasn't on the ranch when she was a child, she was in Petaluma, but in her summers, all of the cousins gathered. This happens to be an apricot orchard in Hollister. So the cousins gathered for weeks, and their ritual, their summer camp, if you will, of getting together as cousins was really to work this harvest. And it's something that they tell the stories of incredibly longingly and with a lot of pride. So I told you I had to take a lot of risks, and these memories in my life were very dormant until after several years in the technology industry and a really great career with Apple Computer, I got to thinking that something was missing. I was doing wonderful things with startups in San Francisco and lovely things with technology and educators, but there was absolutely a gap until I met my now husband, Michael Chiarello. And I left a life that I knew a lot about and stepped into a life I knew absolutely nothing about, I thought. And in that moment, and from that point to this point, 15 years later, every single day I've gotten to live in the presence of someone who has lived a life that's deeply passionate and purposeful around food. And through the things we've done together, and there have been many, and I've had the absolute pleasure to witness and help to participate in thousands of experiences around food. Now, we were watching America really have a rebirth around food and a reawakening to the relationship that it wants, that all of you want with food. And I was having the same one myself. And so when you're surrounded by something that's so incredibly powerful and moving on so many levels, it grabs at you a variety of different ways. For instance, just me starting to think about, through the eyes of Michael and all the people that he has served, what's the history of an ingredient, a process, a dish, a place? How does that bind people together in story? How do you celebrate someone's legacy and honor them? And this is, again, at its best, Peter Mondavi at his 100th birthday, through the stories of their family. And what is so compelling about spending hours and hours together with people that you enjoy making something? So the memories were gathering, or they were being unlocked, and they did crack open the door for me, but they didn't tell me what to do. And it was the second level, the mango moment, that started to give that shape. This is our son, Aiden, and when he was 3 years old, we took him down the road to a wonderful ranch called Connolly Ranch to have his birthday party. And there's this passionate group of educators there, and this is a farm just for kids. The only thing about this farm is to get kids in touch with farm life. And so what they do there is they have this great dialogue with kids about your food and where it comes from. And one night, Aiden and I, after his birthday party, were settling into our wonderful mother-toddler routine of cracking open a good book right before bed, and we were enjoying the most perfect mango. And I started with this dialogue: Aiden, who do we have to thank for this mango? As they would at Connolly Ranch. And he says, without skipping a beat, well, the sun. Well, why the sun? Well, the sun gives the plant energy. Oh, well, who else do we have to thank for this mango? Well, the dirt, of course. Oh, the dirt. Why the dirt? Well, because the dirt is how the plant gets food. But I don't think the mango is grown from here. Who else might we have to thank for that mango? Well, I think we should thank the people who picked it and the people who brought it to us. So I didn't have my answer yet, but I did have such a huge opening that I knew I had to follow the line of questioning, which basically was, Eileen, what is your legacy going to be? What are you going to do with this big, expansive opening that you're experiencing through this conversation? So, of course, the first thing I did was start experimenting more, and Aiden spent a lot more time at that same ranch that I loved in Olema, with a lot more joyful days. And in short order, I was back at Connolly, and we had created an adventure camp called Dirt-to-Dine Adventures. And simply put, this is this 5-day adventure camp where kids can sink right into the environment from which sustainable and healthy food comes from, and they can become cultivators, harvesters, and chefs. And sure enough, that word gusto was everywhere. And you can see it on their faces. You can see it in the fact that it participates on a very tactile level. You can see that it's flavorful for them. You can see the joy and the experimentation. Remember, with kids, icky, sticky, ooey, gooey always works. So the door was cracked open, and all of these memories were working, and I still wasn't there. It took a couple more years, really, to know what to do with this emotion, these ideas, these experiences. Experimentation, ideation, and finally last fall, my ultimate purpose was born in the form of Barnraiser. And Barnraiser is simply a place for the millions of us who care about health and wellness and sustainability and good food to partner with the people making it so, one project at a time. You can think about it as a mosaic of the stories from the front lines of this movement. You can think about it as America taking charge of its food destiny from the ground up and building us together a healthier future. You can think about it in ways to celebrate people such as one of my favorite local food heroes from here in the Napa Valley, Rob Keller, who's doing such amazing things around the health of pollinators to make sure that they're around for 2 and 3 more centuries. Chicken Bridge Bakery, North Carolina, reaching right out into their community to make sure that all these beautiful heritage grains that are being grown again in North Carolina are celebrated through their foods. Amigo Bob Cantisano, somebody well known in the Valley because he's traveled up and down the West Coast, converting farms to sustainable and biodynamic practices like our small vineyard. But really, his driving mission is to save 80 varieties of heirloom fruit and nuts that were planted in the gold rush era and are still fruiting in the Sierras, in the wild, so that we can enjoy them again. This is the absolute future of farming. This is Swallowtail Farms, but the face of millennials stepping into farming for the first time when nobody in their family has done it before, taking a fallow piece of land in North Florida and then pioneering something called a whole diet CSA box. Hundreds and hundreds of other people paying attention to how we treat the meat that we eat in a humane and slow meat way. Thousands of educators reaching deep into our school culture and inspiring healthy children. So if millions of us get involved in very small ways and partner with these innovators, we will drive good food and sustainability to the tipping point. And that is a beautiful legacy, one that we can all be very proud of. I think for me to find passion and purpose and put it together was how I redefined success. And we can all change the world through food. Thank you.